Building the diaspora connection through generational stories can be a powerful way to preserve cultural heritage, foster understanding, and create a sense of belonging. Experiences and perspectives have evolved over time, and the lessons learned from previous generations should be explored and respected. And we can do this in so many different ways.
This is how we are able to understand ourselves deeper. You're talking of Ori. You see, in my language, it's called Ehi. Yoruba is not even too far away from our language too. Among the Igbo people, it's called Chi. Anyway, we will have another room for this because this is talking about God consciousness.
There is no technological innovation that has happened now that has taken us away. Why we are converging on this platform and we are getting stronger day by day is because of the stories we share.
So the conversation for today, of course, is building the diaspora connection through generational stories. What are even generational stories? Of course, these are already very interesting for me. That is what we are going to be talking about today. And for those of you that are perhaps new to the conversation, this is an integral part of everything that we are doing here. We are looking for how we can use storytelling as a way, as an instrument to connect among ourselves, among the hundreds of millions of African diaspora, and of course also to where we are coming from, which is the motherland. In my place in Assam, it is said that it means that if you take the corn, just the comb of it without the seed around it, that corn is going to be very light. It's not going to be heavy. So what makes the corn really heavy is the corn itself on it. So it means now that what makes us who we are all of us put together, not just one single person or just one giant. No, because the giant, also another way it is said that if you are a tree, you cannot make a forest. There is no way you can make a forest. But when you have other trees around you, then you can make a forest because everything is working together, leveraging the same energy. So if we are talking about storytelling, that is going to be what we are talking about. Not a story of me, but the story of us. All of us are connected in this experience that we are having together. So this is what we are going to be sharing today. Since Dr. Matsia, you are the one that came last, we will pass the mic to you first. Please tell the people who you are and then your first take on the conversation. Please go ahead, sister.
Good afternoon, good night, good evening, good morning, depending on where you're listening from. I am presently speaking from Jamaica. We are celebrating Ash Wednesday today, and it's Valentine's Day across the world. And so I want to say Happy Valentine's Day to each person, and I want to say show some kindness and compassion to those you meet today. I know that we should be doing it every day, but since it is the spirit is today and everyone is in that mindset, let us capitalize on it. And so you want to show appreciation to those who you meet today and those who you have neglected in your family and yourself. Most of all, you want to show some love to yourself. I am Dr. Marcia Thomas. I am a certified practicing Christian leadership consultant, coach, and trainer. I am also a motivational speaker and an author. And I believe that stories let us look into our lives and let others see us through our eyes, because we tell our own stories, and it is our right and our privilege to tell our own stories because it is the only way that it can be authentic. And it is the truest representation of us when we interpret and give meaning to our lives through our stories. Generational stories for me are very important because it is the glue that holds generations together. The generational stories are important for individuals, for families, for communities, for societies, and for you, each person on this group today, because it is an understanding of the type of wisdom and knowledge that comprise the DNA of our lives and our life scripts. And we must not ignore these stories because these stories give us presence and give us the being that we express as humanity and gives us relevance and significance. I'll just stop there for the time being and thank you, Obi, for having me again and saying hello to author Olatunje, Gloria, and all those in the audience. Have a great day as we continue this discussion that is so practical and so timely and so important for us to connect.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Matia. When we talk of generational story, we are talking of passing down those memories that we have inherited from other people that have been here before us. And we could use that to connect ourselves. And that is really very powerful. In that now we can have a cord, we can have a link that should never break so that everybody is tied to it. That is what we are talking about here. The story of where we are coming from, the story of what ties us together, the story of our experiences, the story of our joy. Why not? Also the story of our pain. Because life is not just about joy, laughing all the time. Sometimes we cry too. So this way I think the whole thing is tying around today. And I feel it's going to be very interesting for us as we move on. All right, I pass the mic to Gloria. So this is your turn to share with the people, tell them who you are and what is your first take in this conversation. Please go, sister.
Thank you, Brother Obehi. Greetings, assalamu alaikum to everybody here. I like to start by just, offering a little special greeting in my tradition. Excuse me. And it'll be in my language, Yoruba. Oluwa ọba àwọn ọba mojúbà, mojúbà àwọn yèyé àti bàbá wa, mojúbà àwọn egungun wa. This is just a greeting to honor our elders, our mothers and fathers, the divine, the higher power, and respect and homage to our ancestors. So alafia and greetings to everybody once again. My name is Gloria Tinu Gumbadejo, and I am an ordained minister, a psychotherapist, writer, ancestral healing coach. I support African women ministers who like to add spirituality to their ministry, in particular, and others in the diaspora. Generally, I support them to reconnect culturally, spiritual connection, emotional, psychological, intergenerational healing, strengthening their identity, bringing harmony and balance to their lives through ancestral healing, and reclaiming our traditions, looking back to our elders for uh, for advice, for guidance, for wisdom, direction, and instruction and protection in these challenging times we live in. So, our topic today, wow, another big one. How do you build the diaspora through generational stories? Building the diaspora connection through generational stories can be a powerful way to preserve cultural heritage, foster understanding, and create a sense of belonging. Experiences and perspectives have evolved over time, and the lessons learned from previous generations should be explored and respected. And we can do this in so many different ways. Intergenerational conversations are so important and fosters deep appreciation when done respectively. I remember my mom used to say back in the day, we did this, or back in the day, we didn't do this or that. And I used to tell myself, I used to feel irritated. And I'd say, I promised myself I wouldn't say this to my own children when I have them. And my children, my daughters today tell me they appreciated that I didn't say that to them. And this was primarily because I have a young spirit. I like to think that. And I actually always have deep respect and compassion for and empathy for young people today. I'm not sure I could battle through what they have to experience today. On the other hand, I also have so much respect and appreciation for the sacrifices my elders went through to make a smoother journey or path for me. I think and look at them with so much love and respect and appreciation. I can't get enough of their stories, the grace and doggedness they had to have to keep things going, the wisdom, calm, and patience they displayed, which is something in short supply today. They had so much humor and clarity in their actions. And in Yoruba cultural concepts, we have something called Itan, which is history. We have Iwa, which is character, and Ori, which is your destiny. All these shape the worldview of the Yoruba people. These themes are reflected in generational stories, emphasizing the importance of maintaining cultural identity and moral values across generations. Preserving generational stories is an integral part of connecting all one's cultural heritage and fostering solidarity within the diaspora community. In the Yoruba culture, which I talk mostly about because I am Yoruba, I'm from Nigeria. In the Yoruba culture, culture which might be similar in other cultures and traditions, the role of proverbs, folk tales, and something called oriki, which is a kind of praise poetry. Maybe talk about that another time. It preserves Yoruba cultural heritage, passing down wisdom, intergenerational sharing, personal anecdotes, and family stories rooted in your tradition. Things like myths, legends, and ancestral tales. It's not just for entertainment, but creates a way of identifying, creates bonds and identifying common themes. For instance, things like immigration, identity, resilience, adaptation, and cultural preservation all help to build the diaspora. Telling stories from various generations within the diaspora community helps to showcase the diversity of experiences and highlights the richness of the diaspora. Sharing cultural traditions and practices that have been upheld across generations is a gift. It really is a gift. Curating spaces to hold healing conversations like the one we're having now, these spaces, they're so precious. And also, it supports ancestral lineage healing. Examine how these traditions have been adopted or transformed in diaspora communities and their significance in maintaining cultural connections. You know, there's so much I can say and so much I want to say. I will leave room, for the next speaker, but I just have a few more things at the moment. As I mentioned earlier, I'll go back to the Yoruba culture and the concept of Itan, Iwa, and Ori. They're all deeply intertwined with generational stories emphasizing the significance of maintaining cultural identity and moral values across generations. These things are so important. Telling short stories, long stories, any kind of story. You can tell stories are not just, the formal way of telling stories. What we're doing now, we're telling stories. It's another form of telling stories. Elders within Yoruba families share narratives that recount significant events, migrations, and triumphs of their ancestors. For instance, a Yoruba elder recounted his story of his family's migration from a rural village to the city in search of better opportunities, highlighting the resilience and determination of past generations to adapt to changing circumstances. I mean, it's almost it's familiar in a way. There are many of our mothers and fathers from different cultures and traditions who made their way into the diaspora, and they have such incredible stories to tell of their resilience. I, for myself, I've lived in the UK for over 3 decades. I also lived in the US for about 10 years. It was a culture shock and a lot more. My experience in both countries, having to live in two startlingly different communities and culture without completely losing my own culture, my identity. It was no small feat, I can tell you, but I had to find ways to hold on to that part of me that only myself and my people um, were the ones who had created that identity that I had, and I had to find ways to hold on to that as well. Some of it was subtle, and sometimes it wasn't. And some of the ways that I held on to my identity was through clothing, color, and the language I used, which many people used to not make fun of me. They weren't laughing at me, but they identified me because they always say, "Well, we know Gloria is going to say one or two things in her language, no matter what the occasion was." Or I'd come in with an African print as a head piece of scarf on my head, or I'd have something that would let them know there's something different about this person, and I wanted them to know it, to feel it, to identify me with those things. I feel I've gone full circle and returned to my original culture and traditions, even though I still live in the diaspora. I always kept those stories I was told by my grandfather and other elders of the heroics of my people, their integrity, and moral fortitude. I carried that within me wherever I went, which gave me a sense of pride. I love always mentioning that statement that Maya Angelou said, that carry all your people, everybody who's loved you, who's cared about you, carry them on your shoulders wherever you go. When you enter a room, people will feel that you have people with you, and you will feel safe and secure. I really believe that, because when I walk around, I walk with my people with me. In turn, I have told my own daughters some of my own personal stories, stories of my grandparents, stories of the culture and traditions, and they also have grown up with stories of their own in their young life. They already are making stories of their own. They have a strong sense of identity. They're secure in who they are in their Yoruba culture, and it's something I feel so proud of when I see young people today and how completely lost they are. We owe our children to tell them these stories, tell them our stories, tell them the stories of their grandfathers, their parents, their ancestors. We have to do the research, we have to do the work, we have to ask the questions so we can pass this on, as well as heal our own traumas, all our own generational pain. Another example that I'll give quickly is the concept again of Ori, Ori, the meaning of Ori in Yoruba is your head, but in the Yoruba cosmology, Ori means something much more. It represents an individual's inner sense and identity. Your, it's a kind of intuition that we all have. In Yoruba cosmology, it's something very, very powerful. Generational stories often explore the idea of destiny as a guiding force that shapes the trajectory of one's life. My great aunt told me about how she followed the guidance of her Uri to pursue a particular career path, illustrating the belief in fate and the importance of listening to one's inner voice. I also I've had my own example and my own personal testimony to this concept of Ori. I was clinging to following the guidance of my Ori where this work of ancestral healing is concerned. I wasn't sure about it. There were a few paths that rose to meet me along the way at a critical point just a few years ago. And ancestral healing was the least of all the choices that I had the most confidence in choosing. But I received so many signs that putting this work in front of me, and having always been deeply spiritual and intuitive, I knew that these signs were my Ori speaking to me, and it came from my culture and tradition, which I pay homage to all the time. And listening to my Ori, it has given me more than I can ever be grateful for, because I know now, I'm absolutely sure that I'm living in my purpose. I'm doing exactly what my divine higher power has told me to do, as well as my Ori. I'll pass the mic on from now. Sorry if I took up too much time.
You see, when I was talking just now, I was saying that Sometimes we just, maybe all the time, we need to always connect to something on the root, not just only at the abstract. You see, one of the challenges that we have in the diaspora is that people speak not able to connect to the root. And of course, we don't need to blame them for this. It's because most people didn't have the chance to be able to connect to the root. So that when they make references, it's always lost in the academics. It doesn't go down to the root. You see, what I mean now is that when you make instances, making reference to Yoruba culture, making reference to the life that have been lived by the elders there, it cannot go further than that. That is the last that it can get to. That is the deepest it can go to. We need to go there to use those terms, those language. We can never be enough. In fact, I sort of propose sometime that we need to tell our leaders that when they go to the United Nations, they need to speak our language, use it to make parable, help the people of the world understand that we have highly valuable idiom and way of expressing ourselves without necessarily using English or French or Arabic languages. This is how we are able to understand ourselves deeper. You're talking of Ori. You see, in my language, it's called Ehi. You know, Yoruba is not even too far away from my language too. Among the Igbo people, it's called Chi. Anyway, we will have another room for this because this is talking about God consciousness. Who are you as a human being? It's more than just your color. It's more than just your qualification. It's more than just your education. In fact, in my language, people speak to your ehi. Those that want to insult you, they can say, ehie vaidana, like to say, they don't really tell you your name to come here. They are telling your ori, the way you call ori, or what the Igbo call chi. We call it ehi. There's ehie vaidana, but they also bless your ehi, which is the kind of a torchlight that you have came to this world with. This is not something you get through academic qualification. You were born with it and you also die with it. So anyway, we'll come to this on another day because I was saying this is an important conversation. All right, I will pass the mic on to Arthur John. Then before I move to Latuji, Arthur John, please tell the people who you are and what is your first take in this conversation.
Thank you, Brother Obehi. This conversation means so much to me because I'm a man born in New Jersey here in the United States. But my DNA tells me that my people are from Ghana and Nigeria and many other places in the continent of Africa. And I'll tell you a quick story about my journey in the diaspora. On LinkedIn, I meet a brother named Obehi Ewanfoh, and he and I are chatting because we're both storytellers. In that conversation, I have an awakening, and I say, you know what, Brother Ewanfoh, when I do work with people here in the States or anywhere in the world, I am famous for quoting Chinese philosophers, Greek philosophers, the Stoics, Plato, Aristotle, Benjamin Franklin here in the United States, and I just go on and on and on. I am the gentleman that has the quotes from all of the Anglo thought leaders and thinkers. And I had to laugh because I said, Obehi, I've read Chinua Achebe. I know Nelson Mandela. I have the history, but I don't speak the lessons that come from the place that I come from. I was embarrassed to say that, but it was my truth. And the storytelling for the diaspora, I was delighted to be invited to participate because it gives me a platform to listen. Because I think story listening for me is more powerful than storytelling. And I learned so much from Dr. Marcia, from Alatunje, from Gloria, and from you, Brother Obehi, because you share from the heart the lessons that you've learned that my American self craves. I thirst for. I'm like the man in the desert that's thirsty. And here I land in a place that I'm nurtured by the spirit that you share, the generational stories that come from the places that you come from. And I think last night, as I thought about the conversation we would have today, there's an American poet, and I think, spoken word poetry comes from the heart of Africa, from the Giro. The spoken word, in the Baptist church here in North America, the call and response spoken word. There was a poet that was a musician named Gil Scott Heron. He became famous long before there was rap and hip hop. He was kind of the genesis of that, but he was a revolutionary. He was a man that knew that things in the United States were broken, and he spoke his truth in prose. And I just want to read a little bit because I think how he felt in 1982 when he wrote this little bit of a poem. I won't read the whole thing because it's long, but he says, "Black History in the World" was the title of this spoken word. And it begins by saying, here are the lyrics. "I was wondering about our yesterdays and started digging through the rubble. And to say, at least somebody went through a hell of a lot of trouble to make sure that when we looked things up, we wouldn't fare too well, and that we would come up with totally unreliable portraits of ourselves. But I complied with the few facts I could, such as they are, to see if we could shed a little bit of light, and this is what I got so far. First, white folks discovered Africa, and they claimed it fair and square. Cecil Rhodes couldn't have been robbing nobody, 'cause he said there was nobody there. White folks bought all the civilization, since there wasn't none around." That's deep because that's the truth that kids in America are taught. That colonization made everything possible. I, Arthur William Jones, born in New Jersey, quote Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle. And when I met Brother Obehi, I said, whoa, Arthur, slow down, brother. You've got it all wrong. Because I know the prose from Gil Scott Heron was telling me the truth from my past, but I learned the word Sankofa, and Brother Obehi made it possible for me to go back and get my past, to get the lessons from long ago, so I could change the stories that I tell the people in the corporations that I support, not the truths that were shared by Plato and Aristotle and Socrates, but the teachings about ethics and values that come from the folk tales of the Zulu and the Hausa and the Yoruba. And so that's what I think for me, this diaspora storytelling platform has become. It's a place where I learn the generational stories and the lessons that I can pass on, not just to my family and not just to the friends that gather around me, but to the people in the corporations that don't look like me, that need to know that the value that comes from the place that I come from, where my DNA was born, have truths about building culture, inspiring teams, and circular economy and generations of sustainability that are the things that they all crave. I just want to point them to the source material for those things is in the greatest continent on the planet. It's Africa. Thank you for giving me a chance to share that bit of my story.
Thank you so much, brother. Thank you so much for that. You see, that sharing is deep. It's very deep. And yeah, we are ready also to do deep things. One time, that should be over a year ago now, I was interviewing a US professor of history. We were talking about what we often talk about here, which is African history and the relationship that we have had with the European. At a point, it appeared as if my sister, the professor, was about to cry. Then I told her, I said, listen, sister, if you have to cry, you can cry here. We can cry together, but we have to do this. We have to talk to ourselves. We have to heal ourselves. So when I hear you talking just now, it looked like tears want to come from my eyes too. Because this is about us. This is about us. How did we get to this point? Maybe by talking about this experience that we have had, the truth in our heart, maybe we can have a way to retrace our step back. It is important, the conversation that we are having is absolutely fundamental. Now, let me share another story with you. This is a child that was born here in Italy of a Ghanaian parent, both of them. Of course, this child, like every other children of African or African diaspora, go to school and they are given Western education. And there is nothing wrong getting education. But there is everything wrong if the child is educated away from his or herself. Because this child, an adult now, told me, I'm not saying I heard it somewhere. He told me that Africans have no history. If there is a history in Africa, I should prove it. I was shocked. I'm not saying this is somebody of 12 years. This guy, as of the time that he was speaking, should be something like about 18 or 19 years old. This is the work of the miseducation that not only happened in the United States, but it happened all across Europe, and it happened in Africa too. Because we are being fed information that will help us to, like Atu was saying before, so that when we dust out the document that they are giving to us, we will be ashamed of ourselves. We will look upon ourselves and say, we have never been here. Thanks to racism, thanks to slavery, thanks to colonialism, without them, we are nobody. That is a narrative that is prepared for us so that we can be ashamed of who we are. Anyway, I don't want to take it further than that because other people will talk. Olatuji, please go on. Tell the people who you are and what is your first take on the conversation, building the diaspora connection through generational stories.
Amazing. It's good to be here. And I want to say alafia to everybody. Thank you so much for coming around. It's a great pleasure. This is so sweet. All right. So sweet. In case you are just joining us for the first time, we are doing a very great work here. And it's us building true connection through generational storytelling. Now, it looks as if I'm trying to, say word for word what the exact topic is for today. But what we have been doing now is, we have been trying to create a bridge between the past and the present and connecting it to the future. And this is very, very interesting. So interesting. I won't, play with words, all right? I always take them seriously. And I've become very serious, recently, helping people through emotional intelligence, all right, to be able to assess even stories in their life, the stories that their emotions are telling them. And we are able to also, through that, able to assess the stories in their lives, right? The stories around their life to be able to get the best possible. Now, look at it. Look at the word generational. I told you I will not, spare that word. Look at the word generational. I'm seeing two words there. I'm seeing gene and I'm seeing rational. And guess what I'm seeing? Without generational stories, we cannot have rational genes. This is it. It's the most portable inheritance, right? Generational stories are the most portable inheritance that we receive from our parents. Now, why do we receive inheritance? Why are we given inheritance? We are given inheritance to serve as as signals, to serve as a part of the past in the present, to remind us of certain order, to remind us of certain values. All right, and the scripture says that a good man leaves inheritance for his children. Now, what is that telling us? It means that the way you are going to show that you are truly good is by having inheritance for the ones that are coming. Look at it. If we do not have generational stories, we are unable to have the bridge between the past, the present, and the future cannot be rational. And that is where we are today. A lot of beautiful things that we have lost out from, they are all because we have lost out of the rational gene because of the misplacement of the generational stories. Parents, right? Look at the word parents. It's paying of rent. The children owns the world. The parents only pay the rent for them to be there. It's been paid for you, you have to pay it for other people too. So how do we get this done? It is done through tellings of generational stories. You can't just go all the way like that. You see, when you give your kids, your children, you buy them stuff, before the next 5 years. 5 years is now even too much. They will lose that thing to innovation. All right. Just look at what has happened to us since 2020, since the COVID. The world has reinvented itself so many times. But what has kept us together? Our stories. There is no technological innovation that has happened now that has taken us away. Why we are converging on this platform and we are getting stronger day by day is because of the stories we share. We get to strengthen our identity. We get to empower ourselves and create that right atmosphere for effectiveness by the stories we share. Any story, I usually will tell it and say it anywhere, that anything that makes you to be dissociated from your origin will never give you your originality. You will not be original when you are dissociated from your origin. So generational stories, all right, they are, somebody said, he said, a people without knowledge of the past, their origin and their culture, he said they are like trees that don't have roots. I think that is unbelievable. It should not be a tree in the first place. So anything that is making us to feel like we do not have history wants to kill us. It's like uprooting a tree and putting it on the ground. It's now a stick. So the best thing that can happen to it is to be a firewood someday, if at all it will still be useful. So it's now very important that we have to connect to our generational stories, because this is the most portable inheritance that we can give. This is the inheritance that serves as preservative to any other thing you have in substance or stuff to be handed over. Remember, without the generational stories, we cannot have rational genes. We are not going to be having children who will have sense when you have dissociated them from the history or the story of how they came about. In Africa, in my language, they say, rántí ọmọ ẹni tí ìwọ ń ṣe. Don't forget the son of whom you are. When you are immediately stepping out of the door like this, you are going anywhere and you are not coming back that day. It's a feeling that, okay, you are going to represent the family. It's a feeling that you are going to tell the world where you are coming from. So they quickly will tell you that, hey, young man, young lady, don't go outside there and rubbish this name that we have built. Right? So immediately we begin to have stories that do not have this kind of connection. We cannot be rational. And you will be able to see and tell clearly in the spaces where we have not had these kinds of stories, we have lost the rational gene. We have not been able to think, hey, come on, what do you mean? How will you say a skin color is better than another skin color? It's irrationality, all right? Because somebody has lost touch with generational stories, capable enough of giving us that painting, that picture of, hey, you can do it. If some people could do it even when we were not this capable, come on, why will you be this capable and you say you cannot do it? That's the power, all right? That's the strength that comes. That's the enablement that comes with it. We are 100 times, many million times better than people that lived when there was no electricity. But you see people today, when you don't have that kind of story, you want to be, pitied. You want people to say, hey, come on, sorry, we know. But when you have that kind of story by yourself, you rise up. So when they are disallowing you from having a taste of such stories, you are only being, disenfranchised from being able to do the things you are supposed to do. So please listen. Anything fighting hard, anything fighting hard to dissociate you from your origin does not want you to be original. And look at the word generational. I see two words there as I close. One, gene. The second one, rational. And what does that tell me? It tells me that without the generational stories, listen, we cannot have rational genes. The future is a mirage if we do not have stories that will bring us from the past to the present. Thank you. Let me use my mic for now.
Thank you so much for that, Olatuji. That is so powerful. Someone might be asking, what does story have to do with building the future? Well, it have everything to do with it. I say often that we look at technology today, we look at AI, which is the topic of the day. We look at all form of technology that we have. You see, they are built on those technology that was invented before the building of the pyramid. It's always one stone on top the other. You see this big company today talking of maybe going to the moon and the rest of that. Without a story behind that, it is going to be difficult to even sell the idea to other people. So story, again, is fundamental in everything that we do. It helps us to understand where are we coming from. It is when we understand where we are coming from that we can even understand why we are where we are today. If we can understand that, then it is possible for us to project a kind of future that we can have. If we don't know where we are in our place itself, a child that don't know where it's coming doesn't also know where it's going. You see, where you are going is in front of you, but before you know where you are going, you must know where you are coming from. The line doesn't start from you. It starts many, many years before you. That is why we are also talking about our ancestral connection. That before you, there were other people. Without those people, you cannot be here. You are not here because of your intelligence. You are not here because of your smartness, because you were lucky. You are here because other people have made sacrifices. You see, Gloria was talking before, say something to the effect of we should honor our ancestors, the sacrifices that they have made. That is important. That we need to know that they have made huge sacrifices, for which reason we are here. We are not here just because of our effort. We are here also because of their effort. Without the mathematics formula that was created before the building of the pyramid would not be built because it had to be measured. You need to know the weight. How do you know which stone you are going to put on top of the other? You need to know exactly. These were sophisticated mathematics at that time, more than 3,000-4,000 years ago. That is the same technology that AI is built upon today because it's calculating, bringing different information and repurposing it back again. If you take out mathematics, that will not hold, it will not work. That is the basis upon which everything is set up, including the city that you are seeing in the United States or in Moscow or in Beijing. All of them are built on the same structure. That is the story. All right. Thank you so much, Jim, for joining us. I believe you have something to say related to the conversation of the day. Please go ahead and share with us, and please be brief.
All right. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm from Minnesota in the United States, where we happen to have a very large population of African diasporas. My work is about creating distance learning applications in all of the 54 African countries. And what I learned and recognized is that 70% of the existing population of Africa is under the age of 30. So there's 149 million African diasporas around the world. And we have technology now that will allow us to tell our stories and pass them on through mobile devices. So I think that what we need to do is work with that 149 million African diasporas to be able to reach back to the country and work with the young people who are hungry to either learn more about the ancestry or the different generations and preserve the culture. So, with that, in November in Nigeria, we have an educational gala festival for young entrepreneurs that are coming, and it would be fruitful if the African diasporas would show up for that and tell their stories of their culture and the culture of all of the different countries within Africa. So, with that, I thank you for your time.
All right, thank you so much, Jim. We appreciate you. We appreciate also what you're doing because knowledge is always going to be very important, and also the tools, the way to be able to do that also is going to be very important for us. So I appreciate your contribution and what you are doing with your company. All right, with that, I move to Gloria. I think it is important that we talk also about the how. That is usually an interesting part of the conversation. You're an ancestral healing coach. Definitely, I am thinking something in that line. In that, how could that be an instrument of building the diaspora connection through generational story? Because I want to believe that you are using storytelling as one of the tools in your teaching. Please help us with that.
Brother Obehi, you have mentioned my favorite topic. Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you to all the wonderful speakers so far. Ancestral lineage healing can be used as a tool to build the diaspora through generational stories, and is a profound way to reconnect with cultural roots, heal intergenerational wounds, and foster a sense of belonging. We start by acknowledging the impact of historical traumas such as slavery, colonialization, displacement, discrimination on diaspora communities. We have to acknowledge it, own it, in the sense that this is part of our history and we all have stories to tell. Even today, yesterday, there's stories. The day before, there's stories. Today, there's stories, not to talk of hundreds of years and centuries ago. The stories are there. We recognizing that these traumas can be inherited and passed down through generations, encouraging individuals within the diaspora community to reflect on their family's history and the intergenerational patterns that may have emerged as a result of the traumas. I think so many of us are walking around with pain, with these traumas that show up in so many different ways in our lives that we're not consciously aware of. They're in our subconscious and wreak havoc in our lives. We need to talk about them. Part of telling those stories is where the healing takes place. Integrating healing ceremonies and practices. These are part of our traditions, these practices. They're so important for us to learn the practices of our elders. We can modify them, but this is part of what our healing, how our healing takes place, is through these practices, these traditions that are unique to us as Africans. We adapt so many Western ways of living, so many, you know, cultures of other people, which is fine. You can learn about them, but don't forget your own. And part of talking about it, telling the stories, is how we integrate these traditions, healing ceremonies and practices inspired by ancestral lineage traditions. We integrate it into our storytelling sessions. These could include ancestor veneration. I'm not talking about ancestor worship. There's a difference. Veneration is honoring, guided meditation, ceremonial offerings to honor, and offerings. Again, I'll come to these words that sometimes can be very triggering. It's really just a way of acknowledging and honoring with respect our ancestors. These are part of the traditions and practices of ancestral healing. They heal the ancestral wounds. We must stop being afraid of our traditions and stop being triggered or activated by certain words. It's almost like the story of Pavlov's dog. If anybody knows about that story, where the dogs were programmed to respond to certain words. And when they hear them, they attack or they attack people. In our communities, we have been programmed to have this visceral reaction when we hear certain words like rituals, spirituality, offerings, when it relates to our African traditions and culture. However, in the traditional religions, Christianity, Islam, and other religions, rituals are performed without even thinking about it. Things like mass, communion, prayers, and many other repeated activities. They're all rituals, but we don't see them as that. That's all that rituals mean. Offering prayers, blessings with holy water, oil, all of those are rituals. And we have to open our minds and understand where these negative attitudes to our traditions came from and reject them. These are part of what our ancestors did that helped them to stay connected, to stay as a community, to have harmony and balance in their lives. All that we're doing now, is it giving us harmony and balance? There's so much disharmony, dis-ease in society today. So let's look back. Let's look back to gain some of those traditions that have gone before us. With ancestral healing, inviting elders where we can, the elders who are still alive, or reaching out to them where they are, maybe in the diaspora or in our homes, our home country, and invite them to teach us our traditional healing practices rooted in our cultural heritage. This is my mission going forward. As I step closer to my elder years, I like to take this opportunity. I'm just going to take a breath and deviate slightly, but I want to 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 take this opportunity to show my respect and admiration for my brother Obehi for so many reasons, who from the very first day we met, he has always addressed me as madam, which he doesn't have to, living in the diaspora, and I don't present as someone who requires that manner of greeting. However, he has not forgotten his roots, and he's honoring me by addressing me in that way because I hear what is behind the word, which transcends the word itself. I understand him and the respect he's given me by using that word. And when I hear it, a part of me just feels a kind of warmth because it does it without thinking. But it's very meaningful. That's why I say some of these things that we do are traditions. They're very simple things, but the power in them, and I don't want to embarrass my brother, but every time I hear it, it reminds me of home. It reminds me of good people. It's such a powerful thing. Facilitate conversations that empower individuals and celebrate their cultural identity, as we're doing here and every time we meet. So I want to encourage us to explore our ancestral traditions, languages, music, dance, and other cultural practices as a source of strength and resilience. And let the stories flow, brothers and sisters. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you, sister. That is so valuable. That is really so valuable. Thank you so much for that. All right, I will ask Mr. Athon if within what you do, what do you see as a solution to what we have discussed today? Actually, what do you think is a better approach to building the diaspora connection through generational story within what you do? Please share with us.
That's a great question. I think because my mission, because of our relationship in this platform, is really focused on the work that I do day to day and the work that I hope to do in the future, and that is to continue to enlighten people and business professionals that wisdom, the ancient wisdom, the generational wisdom, is not exclusive to the Greeks, the Romans. That it's, we have African folktales that I always am delighted to hear Gloria and Olatunji and Dr. Marcia and yourself share with me, because they brighten up my my intellect. They make me smarter about the connection that we have, that and those stories bridge connecting the ancient wisdom to the modern business challenges that people face. And so my mission is the ancient wisdom, bringing it into the modern world and using it as guideposts, as North Stars for business leaders that are challenged with incredible volatility, uncertainty, chaos, and ambiguity. But, if I look at the story of Anazi, or the story of the king and the calabash, or the story of the wise daughter, I've been researching, I've been finding them because I want to use them to enlighten those leaders to say, there's ancient wisdom. Let me tell you the story of the wisdom of the pot, or the wisdom of Anazi, the spider, and how if you embrace the ethos, the thinking, and use it in your corporate world, the story can champion that knowledge sharing, which is something that story really produces and honors and promotes, is something that when you do that in your business, you're creating better communications, and better communications evoke more creativity and innovation in your business. I see myself as the storyteller that brings those stories from our ancient past forward into the boardrooms of modern leaders to help them find new ways of creating better strategies to help them achieve success, to move from intention to impact. So that's just kind of where I'm at. And I think it's largely supported by this platform and the lessons that I learned when I participate here. So thank you to everyone for making me smarter.
Thank you so much for that. We appreciate you. We appreciate the value that you share here and you continue to share here. We really do. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for that, brother. That's so great. All right, let me talk to Dr. Marcia. The conversation remains what it is, which is how do we build the diaspora connection through generational stories? And now, you are here every day. Nobody is paying you. You decide to be here because you believe that this is important for you, that the value that you are adding to the people here is important for you, because we are all here to serve. We are serving the people. Nobody is paying us for this, no? It's not like we are doing this one because somebody is going to give us money. We are here because we believe in what we are doing. Now, this is the question. What you are doing might also sometimes relate to business. So for this reason, I'm going to ask you, how can what you do in your business profession, in your career, what kind of solution can people find there? Those who want to build their diaspora connection through storytelling. Please share with us.
First of all, I want to add two things to the previous discussion, as I resonate with author and I resonate with Gloria as it relates to owning and appreciating these ancestral rituals, these stories, these habits, these patterns, these cultures, and these mindsets that we carry us in our spirit. We must nurture it because it is like a roadmap. And we have to understand that even if we ignore our roots, because generational stories connects our patterns, our habits, our viewpoints, our perspective, our overcoming, our conquering with those who have gone before us. Generational stories is like the footprints that we weave, and we as a generation will weave that others who come behind us must find us faithful. And so whatever our gifts, they are supported, they are enhanced, they are amplified by our reference point. And our reference point is also our resident point. And that is the sum total of our character and how we navigate the future. It is these generational stories that make us promote those habits in us, in how we cook our food, and the medicinal value of our herbs and our seasonings and our spices, and what they do for us other than just flavor our food, how they build our constitutions and what they mean to us, the interpretations and meanings that we give to our story of how we handle and how we honor and how we dispense our emotions and our and christen our birth of our children, our birth of new ideas, our birth of our achievement, how we view mistakes, how we pivot, how we deal with resilience, all goes back to our stories, because these stories, when they are told over and over, carry, I say, and I continue to say, a different interpretation, a deeper meaning, and a greater illumination of why we must achieve, why we must succeed, why we must build, why we must change, why we must adjust, why we must be flexible, why we must be innovative, why our creativity and our designs are so rich and pulsating. Our stories make us understand who we are and define us in such an indomitable way that we become fortified in the minds of others, because our stories are built on our generation, what they are carrying through our DNA, through our lives, through our characters, through our achievements, even when we are dead and gone. And even if these stories are oral traditions, they are, and whether they are written, whether they are acted out by the perfection of how we handle ourselves and carry our existence sacredly and divinely into the next generation, how we overcome and how we become masters of our destiny, is all embedded in the story. And when I, as a Christian leadership consultant, trainer, or coach, especially as a life coach, have to bring persons back into being confident in themselves, gaining clarity, having to understand the reason for their beliefs, their core values, their behaviors, where it all started, and the distinct interception of self, of limiting beliefs, of imposter syndrome, all of those things when they enter. Why those things will not take root in your spirit? It's because of these generational stories. And I pull them back because when you were born, and that stormy night that your mother had you and was not able to get the nursemaid there and had to deliver you yourself, placed over you a seal, a protection of life, abundant life, of seal your destiny that you will live and not die. Seal the destiny that you will become great, that you have been set apart for something. That story in itself brings all of those messages and gives you a perspective that has already made you in your mind. Make up your mind to succeed. Because you, that story says that against all odds, you are still here. And because you are here for a purpose. So I bring my clients back into a framework that makes them reframe how they see themselves, the negative thoughts, how they were ushered into this world, and why they must define their purpose and establish their mission in their identity, and why it is that they must know themselves, accept and love themselves, and why is it that they must resonate in every room they go and must appear at every table confidently, authentically, and unapologetically. These are the foundations of how we view, how we navigate, how we connect in this world. And when we are able to connect people to each other in this way, connect stories, connect histories, connect past, connect traumas, connect achievement, connect rewards, connect mistakes, connect failures through this story, then we become so resilient that we become so afraid of what we can achieve and not be afraid of what we have not achieved.
Yeah, that is the spirit. That is the spirit. We can feel it, sister. We can feel it. We can hear you. We can hear you. That is good. It means we are connected now to this journey, and it is important. You see, I am a content creator. That is what I do. My business is around content creation. So I work with a client who is doing something similar to what Mother Gloria is doing, but his is different in that he does something within a line of traditional medicine, which is valuing African traditional medicine. So we create article for him. And I'm beginning to see how much people are valuing the content that we are creating. No, I mean, the line of thought around it, which is valuing the use of alternative medicine to modern medicine. Because modern medicine, some people might like to call them European or Western medicine. They are not actually really Western medicine. They are modern medicine. It doesn't mean that everything that is happening today is Western. Everything that is happening today is happening in this time. If there are Africans living in this time, Africans are also part of that. So modern medicine was actually built up from traditional medicine. We cannot do away with modern medicine, and this is why. In it is buried a deep history and culture. Now, maybe we might take a moment to even look at that briefly. In many traditions in Africa, you do not disrespect the forest. You do not disrespect the plant because that is the source of your livelihood. Now, people in our culture know the names of the plants in the forest. These are the people that never went to any modern school. But yet they know the name, not just the names of this plant in the forest, but they also know what each plant can do. Now let me explain. I grew up with my grandmother until her death. When my grandmother is sick, either of fever or any other type of sickness, because my mother, I never see my grandmother going to any modern hospital. She will go to collect different type of herbs in our neighborhood, different type of herb, more than 30 of them, different leaves. She will put it together, she will boil it, and you will get a drop of that substance. You will drink it, you will be well again. It has happened to me. It has happened to her. It has happened to all of us. You see, we are nine siblings. Each of us was born in the house. None of us was born in the hospital. We should not disrespect our culture, our history. Now, why are we talking about history? How do you think my grandmother knew about that? That was told to her. That is already history. And now, what should happen if we value that history? It means we will never lose it. But what will happen if we don't value that history? We will lose it, actually. And we will come back to who was saying it before, that we are essentially be giving information so that when we dust out the information that we are giving, we will essentially be ashamed of ourselves. We will lose. Then, of course, the consequence of that is that we will go back to those who give us the information and ask them, what is the way forward? They will have become a commodity in their hands. But what if we could know our story? It means now that when we have a problem, we will ask ourselves, not other people. We will ask ourselves, other people before us have had problem. How have they overcome it? Because now you don't want to tell me that we are only having problem today. No, we have been having problem before. Our ancestors have been having problem before. All these problem and solution are documented in our story. I am not saying they wrote it down in a book. Okay, some of them wrote it down in a book, but not all of them. If you know your story, now you know how to overcome those challenges when the time comes. But if you don't know your story, you know only the story of other people, then you will know how to disvalue yourself and always consider other people as a solution to your problem. Can you see where we are today, how we gradually become a problem for ourselves? Because we have lost track of our story. So we now ask people in the Europe, please come and save us. Come and help us. But why can't we help ourselves? If our ancestors have been helping themselves up until now, they didn't need other people to show them how to live. They know how to cultivate. They know the weather. They know where to plant. They know when not to plant. All these are buried in the story. If you don't know your story, then you think they have never done anything before. You will look like that little child that was growing up here in Italy who said Africa have no history because he was told Africa have no history. This child never understand that there are great Zimbabwe, there are the great ancient war of Benin. It become irritating and become frustrating to see that this is the way it is. So we need to make an effort, a deliberate effort to know our story, where we are coming from. It will help us to understand our food. You see, one day I was talking about food. I was saying, you see, in Italy, for example, or in many other parts of the world, in the West particularly, you will take a plate of food. You say, how beautiful is this food? How nice is this food? But have you taken the time to really examine the content of this food? I was saying, going back to the story of my grandmother again, that the food my grandmother can cook is far more rich and valuable than any food I can buy in any restaurant here in the West. And this is why. When my grandmother wants to cook either ogbolo or egusi, she will take the time to gather her ingredients. And all the ingredients are usually complete. And I say to my guests, and I will say to all of you that are listening to me now, that when the food is cooked, it's beautiful with aroma, colorful and very nice. But guess what? My mother did not put any coloring substance in the food. All the color that you are seeing is only deposited by the different ingredients that she has put in the food. Now, somebody came to Africa and told us that they know better what we can eat. But this is a transaction. It are gradually, like Dr. Marcia was saying before, they are telling us to devalue ourselves so that they can serve us better. It's always about the money. When you no longer have anything to sustain your life, you will still want to live, then you need to depend on them to give you the source of livelihood. Then whatever they give you, you need to take it or you will die. That is the power of story. Because if you know your story, if you know that people like you have been surviving in a place like you, where you are today, then you will find a solution to that. You don't need another person. Nobody needs other people to survive. Talking of improvement, yeah, maybe we can talk about that. But to live, nature have given you all the ingredients to be able to survive where you are. Look within where you are, your acres of diamond is not from another place. We don't need IMF to bring development to Africa. In fact, IMF never bring any development to any part of the world. They are always reaping from the people. If you want to develop, you need to use the local resources for the interest of the local people.
I got to connect with Gloria that I met here. And I shared with her that I had to go and do my final journey as a healer. And when I came back from my journey as completing my training as a healer, I kept asking myself, how come there's so much shame around African ways of healing? And I kept asking that question over and over again. And one day in prayer, I saw the number 1400 flashing before my eyes. It didn't make sense to me what that was all about. I had a conversation with a to-be supervisor because I want to do my PhD on my journey as a healer because I want to bring a different narrative around healing and African ways of healing. I want it to be normal for my daughter who's 8 years old to say, oh, I went to see a healer, or oh, I've gone to see a psychologist, or I've gone to see a GP. We should be part of the ambit of the healing modalities that are around. And to change the language that is very derogatory, in my opinion, we are called indigenous or alternative. Anyway, spoke to my to be supervisor, and in having the conversation, I then said, I don't understand where I got these negative perceptions of African ways of healing. And she then told me about the Witchcraft Act. So I'm in South Africa. And she said, check the 1957 Witchcraft Act, which made it criminal for us to go and consult healers. And obviously, we then went and did this in the dark. You'd go, because if you were seen to go to a healer, then you're potentially arrested. I then came back, did my research, and this 1400 keeps coming up. And I'm like, what's this 1400 all about? And when I went to search online, it turned out that in the 1400s in England, witches were hunted and burned at the stake. And for me, it made sense because everything is energy. Whatever was happening in England, and yes, through colonialism, it came down here, but energetically, because our DNA, so I believe in reincarnation. So I know when I did past life regression that at some point I was Japanese, at some point I was Albanian. So maybe my ancestors, whose DNA is in my DNA, was potentially burned at the stake or hunted down or done something that brought a lot of shame and sadness, which is what I'm now carrying, and I'm now having to heal by honoring to say I am a healer, and really saying that with great affirmation, and also embarking on this journey of saying I want to do my PhD because I want to change the narrative. I want it to be okay to speak to the gentleman that Brother Obe is helping with stories around our healing herbs, because there's a lot of healing in what God and nature has provided for us. But we all have this negativity associated with drinking herbs and consulting healers, because I believe of this energetic transcendence from the 1400s. Thank you. So I suppose it's my ancestors that then plugged me in, because I don't know how I got plugged in. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. I really do. Of course, the message is driven home. It's not everything that we understand. It's not everything that is just simple ABC, but it's fine. We are here and we are enjoying it. Thank you so much for that. All right, we have spent enough time here, and we are. This is usually the last one I will ask each and every one of you that are here just now. So let me start with Mr. Athun. What would be your final thought here to conclude the conversation? Maybe a message, but remember to tell the people how to find you too.
I would just say that, Sankofa, go back and get it. If you don't have it, this is a place where you can get it. Join us whenever Obehi publishes the storytelling through generational stories for the diaspora, because it enriches me. So thank you. Thank you all for what you share. I can be found on LinkedIn. A few of my resources, ebooks and things like that are available for you to see what I think and feel about storytelling. And ashe to everyone. Thank you.
All right, so Mrs. Gloria, so it's your turn. Please, what is your final take here? And please remember to tell the people where to find you if you have anything that is out for them.
Thank you, Brother Obehi, and thank you for all the speakers once again. I am offering a 5-day mini course on ancestral healing, unlocking, excuse me, unlocking the power of your lineage, and whatever your reasons for, maybe you're curious, you want to know more. This 5-day mini course is a free introduction to ancestral healing, debunking the myths and misinformation around this important lost process, tradition that leads us to claim our divine strengths, gifts, and blessings. And you will learn about how healing ancestral wounds and the patterns can help release energy blocks. You understand how tapping into ancient wisdom for guidance can help you unlock your hidden potential. It'll help you to harness the strength of those that came before you and propel you to embrace a more empowered and fulfilled life. And other areas that will be covered will be learning about meditation, ceremonies, and practical exercises that will enable you to restore balance, harmony in your life, tapping into your innate power and intuition, and activate your ancestral gifts and talents. If any of that has interested you or piqued your attention at all, you can find me on my website, gloriaogumbadejo.com. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'd love to have a chat with you. Thank you again, everybody. Modupe Eshe, that is thank you. I'm very grateful.
Thank you so much for that. Amodupe Eshe, Eshe Gogo. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. All right, we move to Dr. Batia. Dr. Batia, please go ahead and share your final take, and remember to tell them where to find you.
All right. So my final take on this is for stories is that you must question, where do I fall in my generation? Where do I fall in my story? What will be my story? How am I connecting my generational story to my story to amplify the story, to make it more lasting, more applicable, more relevant, more timely? How do I juxtapose each story and serve it to my children confidently, unapologetically, bravely, and honorably? How do I help my generation, the ones I'm responsible for, to embrace the story as a cloak, as shield, as a guide, as a roadmap? And what is the legacy that I want to leave behind in my story? How does my story, generational stories, change me? How does it guide me? How does it allow me to soar? What do I need to do to make it a relevant, valuable treasure? And how can I preserve this treasure? Are some of the things that we want to look into ourselves, and so that we can honor the memories, the sacrifices, and the achievements of those who have gone before us, and how we can add ours to it, so we build a treasure box, and a treasure box that whenever it is found is so valuable that it is preserved as sacred, and we also add our treasures to this box and pass it on as a heirloom of overcoming and of victory, and make others want to fulfill that journey. And so it becomes an intricate story, one story carried through all generations, added, and each person is writing and adding their verse, their line, their chapter to the story. That's what I want us to resonate as we go through, because this is the way that we connect, and this is the way that we forge meaningful connections. This is the way that we give purpose and meaning to our experiences and to the journey. And this is how we honor our walk. I, I, as a Christian leadership trainer, consultant, and life coach, do one-on-one coaching, group coaching, team building. I am a motivational speaker, and I'm also an author. And I help women, especially in leadership, to who feel stuck, overwhelmed, or burnt out, unproductive, or disengaged, to find back themselves, to connect their roots, their purpose, their mission, their passions, their core values with their mission, and to remain resilient and faith-fueled and exemplary, especially in challenging times. And I also have a mini course that is really a challenge through a masterclass that propels persons and guides you and shares tips and strategies interactively as a workshop on how you can become, if you are not, or remain, if you are, a resilient, faith-fueled, exemplary, inclusive, innovative leader. And so that is one of the ways that I can be reached and also benefit you. I am working on a podcast that is called The Leader Like You, where I want resilient, innovative, creative leaders who have navigated their challenges by harnessing their superpowers as leaders to tell their story of encouragement, of hope, of overcoming, of pivoting, so that others, aspiring leaders, beginning leaders, can get hope and know that it is not impossible. I also have another book coming out that is called I Promise, and it is really guiding leaders, Christian career professionals to be exact, and precisely women in leadership, to lead from a foundation of claiming God's promises and how these promises are integrated in their lives. And actually, I have stories that are generational stories embedded in the book as illustration and as support nuggets for the promises, because I have spoken to persons who have been leaders and are retired and who are aged as to how they pivoted and what were some of the challenges that they encountered to carry them to this point and to make them undoubtedly resilient and faithful. So those are the offerings I have at this time. I have a newsletter that gives Christian essential leaders essential tips on how to integrate your faith and stand out in your workplace professionally and personally as a leader. And I also have a devotional, which is a blog where I give you action steps on how to generate and foster creative, collective well-being in your organization. Thank you so much for having me today and for sharing. And I also want to say how much I appreciate the support and also the audience that stayed behind, and also my esteemed members of the panel here, and the wisdom that I have gained and the insights that I am taking with me. Thank you again, and have a great day filled with love and memorable moments, and also a day in which you share compassion and kindness.
Thank you so much for that. We take that message home. This is a day for that. This is one of such important day. I like to add that it is important that we should never allow somebody to make us ashamed of who we are, because who we are is on purpose that we are what we are. We are who we are. It is not by mistake. We are not a product of charity. We are not here because somebody else need to come and discover us. We are not here for the pleasure of other people. We are here full and complete. We are the whole package. We don't need approval from anyone or any group of people. So if we feel that we have a call, if we feel that there is a message that reaches to us, we can act on it. We don't need the approval of somebody to come and say, now you can stand up and act. No. Since the day that you were born, you were given the mandate to be who you are supposed to be. All you have to do, therefore, is to rise up to the call. Answer your call. There is no way that nature could have produced a mistake. You are here intentionally. So do what you are supposed to do. If you hear a call, respond to it. This is your mission. It could be that maybe in your lineage, a time have come for you to be the voice for them. That might be what it is. So answer the call. It might be that you are singing because singing is what was given to you as a way to be able to uplift the image of the people you represent, of humanity. But most importantly, also for your peculiar people who maybe are suffering, their song can never be heard anywhere. Take it, sing. Maybe you are a speaker, use that medium. All of us are not given the same gift. All of us are not given the same opportunity. All of us are not supposed to be given the same gift or the same opportunity. Otherwise, life is going to be very boring. We show up in this world with different capability and capacity, and also with the different instruments for us to be able to execute what we brought to this world with. We came with a luggage, but I must warn us, we don't need to return with that luggage. We will be shortchanging ourselves and shortchanging humanity. The luggage we brought with, we must open it and let it flourish. Let it be used to serve the humanity we are part of. We must use it to serve our people. So we should not be ashamed to dress up the way we are as Africans, to answer our name. Because I know that is what is happening around the corner. They will ridicule you because you have an African name, a different kind of name that is known among others. That is why I was giving Peter, for example. Now, of course, you don't hear me answering the name Peter, because that is a baptismal name. As if the God I was going to serve cannot hear my name when I talk in my language, which is Asa. When I say my name is Obehi, as if that is not qualified enough. So I need to take a Christian name. So there are a lot of things like this that are happening that are gradually helping us to be ashamed of who we are. So that nobody is coming to put a gun on your head, but you will just lose your head because you have passed through a process. That is the process that we are talking about. Let's be proud of who we are. We are original. We are the whole package. We are not inferior, and we don't need an approval.